The reprints in these Commander Fallout decks are even better than you think. Hey everyone, my name is DJ. This is the Jumbo Commander YouTube channel, and today we're talking about the Commander Fallout decks, specifically all of the insane reprints included inside. There are so many great cards with even better art on them. So we're going to break down some of the best Commander cards from these Commander decks so that you can think about putting them in your Commander collection. The first thing that I want to talk about is Aristocrats. If you like the Aristocrat strategy, that's the strategy of creating a bunch of tokens and sacrificing them to get incremental value with all of your board of creatures. You should think about getting this Caesar deck because it's really good and it's filled with some amazing reprints. The one Aristocrats card that I want to highlight from that deck is Bastion of Remembrance. This really needed a reprint and this art looks so good. Bastion of Remembrance is 2 and a black for an enchantment. When Bastion of Remembrance enters the battlefield, create a 1/1 white human soldier creature token. Whenever a creature you control dies, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. It's a drain effect that sticks around on an enchantment that's a little bit harder to interact with, but it also comes with that human, so it has the thing that's likely to trigger the Bastion of Remembrance. Just a nice, solid package for Aristocrats. But honestly, Aristocrat strategies are so popular and so good, and there's a ton of reprints that are going to be supported in this deck. Like, look at Pitiless Plunderer, Skull Clamp. That Skull Clamp art looks amazing. Morbid Opportunist, Black Market. All of these cards are going to gain value whenever creatures die. And that's what the Aristocrat strategy is all about. The reason why these Aristocrats cards are so good is because they work so well in synergy with one another. They give you card draw, they give you damage, they give you ramp. Like, that's kind of all of the things you need to sort of keep going and keep staying in the game. So I would combine all of these together to make like a really robust package. And then it doesn't matter what else you're playing, it's gonna be fun because it's supported with these Aristocrats cards. Actually, there's another standout in that specific deck, and that's Ruinous Ultimatum. Ruinous Ultimatum is red, red, white, 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 black, black, those pips. For sorcery, destroy all non-land permanents your opponents control. I don't think that you realize how insane Ruinous Ultimatum is. I know that it has insane color requirements, and that can scare a lot of people off. But trust me, the mana bases in these Commander decks can support it, and you can support it if you have the right colors and the right fixing in your deck. And if you do, Ruinous Ultimatum is fantastic. Let's compare this to some other cards, like In Garruk's Wake and Plague Wind. That's 9 mana. Like, that is so overwhelming. It's just really hard to cast it. And then actually it's kind of comparable to an overloaded Cyclonic Rift. You know, that might be a little bit different because it's instant speed, but you know, it's only bouncing, not actually destroying what your opponents have on the board. And so Ruinous Ultimatum has some pretty great cards it's compared to. So you can see the amount of blowout potential in it. But you know, if I have to pick a backup, it's going to be Blasphemous Act. Blasphemous Act is 8 and a red for sorcery, but it's not going to cost 9 total mana because this spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature on the battlefield. In Commander, we're often casting this for 1 or 2 mana. Blasphemous Act deals 13 damage to each creature. 13 damage is certainly enough to clear the battlefield and have nice little interactions with cards that redirect damage or effects that give your spells lifelink. Amazing art on this reprint, so good, and the flavor text is insane. Everyone knew the bombs were coming. Everyone but the public. This is going to be my go-to version of Blasphemous Act for all of my Commander decks. So cool. And then if we're talking about stylish board wipe reprints, I gotta mention Farewell. Farewell is a premier board wipe, 4 white white for sorcery, choose 1 or more. Exile all artifacts, exile all creatures, exile all enchantments, exile all graveyards. This is very clearly special borderless treatment with a cartoon style. It looks so good. And I'm looking to switch it up from the original Farewell art, so this is gonna be a perfect fit for my decks. These are 3 super powerful board wipes, incredibly popular in Commander, and the art is just great across the board. Look, sometimes you just need board wipes. In a game of Commander, when you have 3 other opponents, a board wipe naturally does more damage to your enemies than yourself. So no matter what strategy you have, you might need to answer what your opponents are doing. So find the best board wipes, and some of the best ones are right here in these decks. All right, well, since I've already mentioned special art found in the collector boosters, let's talk about a couple more. Look at this Walking Ballista. The art frame is insane. It's also a Saltatron Invader is such a cool name. Walking Ballista is XX for a 0/0 artifact creature construct. Walking Ballista enters the battlefield with X +1/+1 counters on it. 4 put a +1/+1 counter on Walking Ballista, remove a +1/+1 counter from Walking Ballista, it deals 1 damage to any target. It's a staple in our format because Walking Ballista combos with so many things, from like Heliod to infinite mana. Like, it's just a way of weaponizing mana and killing off exactly what we want to, and it being colorless, fetchable is just so good. Walking Ballista is by far the best of this treatment, but the close second has got to be Hullbreaker Horror. Prime Mirelurk Queen, also known as Hullbreaker Horror, is 5 blue for a 7/8 Kraken Horror with Flash. This spell can't be countered. Whenever you cast a spell, choose up to 1. Return target spell you don't control to its owner's hand, or return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. I love it when my big 7-drop finishers have Flash, which means I can play it whenever I want to and can't be countered. So my finisher actually gets to function as a finisher and not just something that gets countered and put into my graveyard. Hullbreaker Horror is also a combo enabler, like Walking Ballista, allowing you to cast things and then bounce your own stuff back to your hand, and recasting it. It can create loops and engines, but it's also just a big flashy monster that helps you control the board. It's so good. And the old art, it was so weird. It's like this weird lobster thing, like coming out of the water. Prime Mirelurk Queen actually looks menacing. And I think that art really fits the intensity and excitement of the card. Way more than weird crab monster. All right, that's a little diversion from the cards that are actually reprinted in the Commander decks. So let's get back to those by talking about the equipment in these decks. I think that the standout card has got to be Pure Steel Paladin. Pure Steel Paladin is white for a 2/2 human knight. Whenever an equipment enters the battlefield under your control, you may draw a card. Metalcraft. Equipment you control have equip 0 as long as you control 3 or more artifacts, which you're probably going to have in a equipment style deck. So a card that lets you draw cards and equip for free cheating mana and cards is exactly what I want in every Commander deck, especially in equipment decks. You've got to admit, this Pure Steel Paladin looks sick. I love it so much. And it's also just a staple in equipment decks. You just absolutely need it. But also, there's some other really important pieces of equipment that have been reprinted too. Like, I've already mentioned that Skull Clamp. Like, that is great, and it looks so sweet. But there's also like Lightning Greaves and Swiftfoot Boots. Both of those are just pure staples. You just need staples like that in these decks. And that's actually the fun of having like full decks reprinted with new art, is because we can go in and find our staples and immediately upgrade them with cool art. Like, just think about things like Command Tower and Soul Ring, also the super special Soul Ring, very nice looking. But all of the lands in here, like things like Swords to Plowshares and Path to Exile, like the Talismans, there are so many really good cards that are just common staples that we might have generic versions. And so by buying a single Commander deck, we can suddenly upgrade them to cool Fallout art. And that's one reason why I really appreciate these treatments. So I've talked about Aristocrats, board wipes, equipment, but green cards, it just overshadows all the rest because there's so many amazing reprints just in green. Standout cards like Guardian Project. We need card draw in green, and just playing creatures, letting you draw cards is so good. Heroic Intervention. If you're playing a bunch of creatures and committing stuff to the board, you need to be able to protect it with one of the best protection spells out there. Heroic Intervention is amazing. The next one is Tireless Tracker. Like, again, this is just card draw attached to land drops. And that's exactly what you want to do in green. You want to play your lands and you want to be able to draw your cards. And so having card draw just synergizes so nicely. And then also I want to give a little mini shout out to like Branching Evolution and Hardened Scales. Those are much more narrow because they center around +1/+1 strategies, but they're very welcome reprints too. And they all look really great. In conclusion, a massive influx of reprints is fantastic for our game, and really cool stylish art on them is great too, because it allows everyone to sort of have access to these cards, but also not just the plain old generic versions, like really cool looking versions. It's also fantastic when all of your staples that you need for your collection come in the form of just a really fun Commander deck. Hey, did you know that I'm a Magic the Gathering ambassador? And this episode is brought to you by Wizards of the Coast. Thank you, Wizards, so much. And what I want to do is get one that I really like. I want to tweak it a little bit, make it my own, but I want to take it out to my local game store. I want to find some friends, make some new ones, and just jam some really cool games of Fallout Commander. There are some events going on at your local game store, but most importantly, just like take these decks out for a spin and have fun with them however you want to. Thanks, Wizards, for supporting this channel, and thank you everyone for watching. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. I hope you guys play some Fallout. All right, everyone, have a good one.